Hello everyone, welcome to this tutorial by Zebra Code. In this tutorial, we are going to look at function overloading in C++. In the course of this tutorial, we will overload a function or overload some functions. We will use variable number of arguments for some functions. What is function overloading? Well, in C++, we overload a function when we give a function one name and make it to be able to perform multiple or different tasks. In other words, many different functions share the same name, but they do different things. In the process, they accept different number of arguments. So, a function that is overloaded takes the same name, accepts different number of arguments, and shares different data types. So if a function shares the same name, accepts different number of arguments with different data types, when we use such functions, how does the compiler know which one of them to use? Well, the compiler chooses which overload function to use based on the number of arguments that the user supplies. It is the number of arguments that the user passes to the function that determines which one of them that the compiler is going to use or choose. This concept is similar to polymorphism in object-oriented programming. Looking at the variable number of arguments, part of it, with variable number of arguments, a function can take variable number of arguments, that is, the number of parameters supplied by the user instead of predefined number of parameters for a function. This is more about declaring variadic functions. And for this process, a separate header file is needed for this to work. And that separate header file is the cstdarg. It is a header file for C++, but it was inherited from the C programming language. There are functions and macros in the header file to use for this purpose. For example, if we are using this header file, there are some functions and macros that we need to apply. And there are some steps to follow in this process. The cstdarg header file has a type which is for the va_list, and it also has some macros functions. For example, the va_start, the va_arg, the va_end, and the va_copy functions. We will use some of them during this video. To understand this process clearly, we are going to use some practical examples. But before then, please take a minute to subscribe to this channel if you have not already done so. Now, I am going to open a text editor whereby I will do some practical function overloading tasks. Alright, now I am going to write some code to demonstrate function overloading in C++. I will be using the Qt IDE for this, and you can use any IDE of your choice to do the task. Any IDE will be fine. Now I'm going to enter some code, include IOStream, include. I'm just adding some header files for now. Include string, include cstd flag we will use this for the variadic number of parameters function using namespace std for standard int main return 0. This is just a standard C++ main template, nothing really special for now. Now I'm going to do some function prototyping. I'm going to prototype a function here, and it will be named country. It will be of data type string. Country, and it will take two arguments, string name, string capital. So for now I'm going to copy it and declare it here. Country function. Declare the country function. I'm going to paste it down here. I've just copied. It will return name plus capital. So here we create a function prototype. Here we declare the function. Now let's call the function in our main application. Call the country function, cout, country. Now it says here string country, string name, string capital. Automatically the IDE is telling me now that this function is of data type string, and it expects two arguments, and both will be of data type string. The first one now will be name. Say here United States of America. Now it's telling me the second one, string capital, Washington DC. End line. Okay, now save it. Let's build and run our application. Great, it was built successfully. Now let's run it. Great, it was run successfully. Here we have United States of America, Washington DC, which is fine. That is exactly what we declared our function to do. Now let's overload this function. I'll do another function prototype for it. String country, string name, string capital. Let's add one more argument, string population. Takes two arguments. Let's add this to it. Function prototype for country. It takes three arguments. So here we have two different functions, but with the same name, country. The main difference here now is this one takes two parameters, while this one takes three parameters. And we need to come and declare it here as well. To save time, I can just quickly copy this one. paste it right below it, and add here now string population. Should be plus population. This takes 3 arguments. This takes 2 arguments. So now we have 2 different functions, but with the same name. They take different arguments. In that case, we are overloading this function country. Let's call it the country function with 3 arguments. That will be cout country, and here now it shows the number of arguments that are expected: string name, string capital, string population. I will enter this time around Germany, Berlin, put 83 million there, end line. What's going on here? Well, it is easy to understand what we have just done here. I mean, we have 2 different functions with the same name, country. We are overloading that function. Now we have a function that is overloaded. The country function is overloaded because here it takes 2 arguments, while here it takes 3 arguments. Let's save, build, and run our code. Great, it was built successfully. Now I'm going to run it. Exactly, it is doing what we expected it to do. United States of America, Washington DC, Germany, Berlin, and the population is 83 million. So the compiler is able to differentiate the 2 functions, even though they have the same name, based on the number of arguments that the user supplies. So this is one way of overloading a function in C++. I'm going to do another example so that you understand it clearly. Here we say function overloading with data type of int. Function prototype for add nums function, going to be of data type int, call it add nums, int a, int b. This will only add 2 numbers. Let's overload it. I'm going to copy and paste it right below it. The first one we only add 2 numbers. The second one we only add 3 numbers. Int c. Let's do one more. The third one we add 5 numbers. That will be int c, int d, and int a. So what we have here is easy to follow. We have a function with the name add nums, and we are overloading the function. In the first instance of it, it takes 2 arguments. It will add 2 numbers, a and b. In the second instance of it, it will add 3 numbers, a, b, and c. In the third instance of it, it will add 5 numbers, a, b, c, d, and e. And they are all of data type int. Now that we have done the prototypes for these functions, let's go and actually declare them. how we see here, declare the add nums function. Just paste the one I copied here before. Add two numbers. Declare the add nums function. Int add nums, int a, int b, as it will add two numbers. Return a plus b. So let's call it in our application. I will leave a comment here calling the add nums function to add two numbers. Calling the add nums function to add two numbers. That will be cout add nums. And here now it says is of data type int, and it expects two arguments, int a and int b. So let's pass in those two arguments, 45, 32. End line. Save it. Now let's build and run our program. Great, it was built successfully. Now let's run it. Great, so it is 77, which is correct. Now let's overload this function by declaring it once again. I'm just going to copy this one to save time. Paste it right below it. Declare the add num functions. Add three numbers. This will now be plus c. So here the function add nums takes two arguments. Here it takes three arguments. And let's call it once again. Call the add nums function to add three numbers. Can I just keep everything the same here? Call the add nums function to add three numbers. That will be cout add nums 67, 120, 733. End line. Now let's save it and run it once again. First of all, let's build it. Okay, we have a typo here now. It says redefinition of int add nums int. Where is that problem coming from? The problem is here, easy to spot. We say here return three variables, that's a plus b plus c, but here we actually declared two. So to fix that, we have to say now int c. So this is one possible problem that could arise when you are overloading a function. As I stated earlier, the number of parameters must be different. So in this case, now the number of arguments are not the same as the number of arguments here. It should be fine. Now let's build it again. Great, it was built successfully. Now let's run it. Great. Now it says here 920. So always understand that the number of parameters it's expected to take should be different. The number of parameters should be different for the functions. Even though they share the same name, they cannot share the same number of parameters, especially if they are of the same data type. Now, for the third one that takes 5 parameters, we need to do the same. Let's declare it. I'm going to copy this one and paste it right below it. This one adds 5 numbers. So here we will say int day, int e. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here now we will say plus day plus e. So to call it in our application, we do the same thing. Call the add nums function to add 5 integer numbers. Cout add nums 22, 46, 78, 101, 29. End line. Call the add nums function to add 5 integers, and we have passed in now the 5 arguments. Let's save, build, and run our application once again. Great, it was built successfully. Now I'm going to run it. Correct, it was run successfully, and it prints out here 276. There is one more example I can do here with this one, but before then, let's try this with a different data type. I will now say 22.11, 46.99, 78.21, 101.44, 29.18. This is a wrong data type we have just passed in. Let's build and run our application. Great, it was built successfully, but let's run it. As you can see, the result is wrong. So if you add those 5 numbers together, the result will not be 276. So what is happening here is that it calculates it as integers. So to fix that, let's overload this function again with a different data type. The first thing I'm going to do here now is to copy this one, leave everything here as integers. I will paste this one right below it, but this time I will call the add nums function to add 5 doubles, 5 double numbers. But for now, I'm going to comment it out because we have not declared it yet. So to do that, once again, let's overload this function. I will just copy this one here and paste it here. Function prototype for add num functions to add 5 double numbers. So here I'll change this one to double, this one double, same for this, same for all. Now the data type is double, not int anymore. I will just copy the same thing so that we can declare it. Declare the add nums function with data type double. I'll paste what I copied just now. Let me quickly tidy up this. Okay. Now I'm going to return A plus B plus C plus D and plus A. So once again, we are overloading this function, add nums function, but this time with a different data type. Here is of data type double, and here is of data type int. Now let's call it in our application. I've already written this. Let me comment this one out. Now let's build and run our application once again. Great, it was built successfully. I'm going to run it now. That's great. So now you see, with the double, this is how it is printed. With the int, this is how it is printed. It is doing exactly what we expected it to do. So this is how you overload a function in C++. It's here of the same name, but with different parameters and different data types. So here we have overloaded the add nums function. With these 4 instances of the same function, we have been able to demonstrate how you can use same name for different functions, but give them different number of arguments and different type of data types. There is one very important point for you here to understand. The add nums function adds here 2 numbers. The same function adds here 3 numbers. The same function adds here 5 numbers. What if we were to add 50, 60, 100 numbers? Does that mean we have to be writing separate functions for them, even though they will be sharing the same name? That would be too much to do. So to solve that problem, we will be doing the variable number of arguments function. That's what I'm going to do in the next part. I mentioned earlier that we can use this header file cstd arg to create variadic number of arguments function. That is a function with a variable number of arguments. Now let's actually do that. There are some steps to follow after you have included this header file to it. I am going to declare that here using variable number of arguments. Using variable number of arguments function, we will define the function here. We will name it my add nums, and it will be of data type int. So that will be int my add nums int nums comma ellipse as dot dot dot. So here, when you are declaring the variable number of arguments, it should be specified to int, and it must have a comma, then followed by dot dot dot. In some places for the documentation, you will find something like this. That is just a comma, then followed by the ellipses, dot dot dot. Some places you need to specify a variable name, and it should be of data type int, and I will follow that approach. So we have it here int, and the variable name is nums, followed by a comma and the dot dot dot. Now inside that header file, there is this data type va list, and we are making an object of it. We call it my values. Let me leave a comment here. We create another variable, int total, and set it to 0 for now. Now we are going to use another function inside our header file. It will be va underscore start, and it will take 2 arguments. The first one is this one here, my values, while the second one will be this one here, norms. I will leave a comment here too. Here I'm getting a message, my values is leaked. Let's leave it for now. I think that error message will go away in a minute. Now let's do a loop there. Here we will do a loop to add all the int values. Okay, it's going to be a for loop for int I. For int I equals 0. I is less than norms I plus plus. Now another variable total plus equals va arg. That takes 2 arguments as well, my values, and it's of data type int. Now we need to close it. Va underscore end. End what? We need to end my values. So that warning message now is gone. It was warning us about this one before, that we open it, we start it, we should end it. Now we have ended it with the va underscore end. That warning message is gone. We don't have that warning message about leaked anymore. So what is actually going on here? Let me quickly explain it once again so that you understand it better. We don't want to be repeating functions by overloading the same function name to be able to add multiple numbers together. To solve that problem, we are using this header file, cstd arguments. And now we have added that header file to our program. We are defining a function, and the name of the function is my add norms. It's of data type int. Like I mentioned before, you should enter the data type and the name of a variable separated with a comma and followed immediately by the ellipses, that is the ... 3 dots. Now we have declared this function. We are now able to use the type and macros inside the cstd arg header file. The first one is to create a list, and they all start with va underscore. So the first one here now is va underscore list. We have a variable of it, and we have another variable here of data type int total equals 0. Then va underscore starts. Again, the macro takes 2 arguments. We are passing in my values and norms, which is this one here. Here we are doing a for loop. For I equals 0, I is less than norms I plus plus. So this variable total now plus equals va underscore arg, then my values underscore int. We were getting a leaked warning message. Now we have closed it with va underscore end. What are we ending? We are ending my values. Now that warning message is gone, so our code is fine. Now we have done the prototype for it. It's time for us to call it. Now we can call it in our application. I'll leave a comment here. call the myAddNums variable number of arguments function. Here I will say cout the total number is. Let's call the myAddNums variable number of arguments function. So cout the total number is myAddNums. This is very important to note. First of all, I will put 4 here. What that means is I am going to put in 4 integer numbers. Whatever you state here, the first one is not going to be added. It just means the number of arguments that you are going to pass in. So I will now say, for example, 23, 67, 33, one more, 86. End line. That is, the total number is myAddNum 4. The first 4 means we are expecting 4 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, which is fine. Now let's save it, build and run it. Everything was run successfully, but there is something here. It gives me a warning message. I think I know where that warning message is coming from. Here we actually need to return something. Return total is fine. Now let's build it once again. Great, it was built successfully. Now I'm going to run it. Exactly, it says the total number is 209. If you add these 4 numbers together, you will get 209. This is not a part of it. This one only tells us the number of arguments we are going to pass in. Now let me change this one to 3, and I'll change this one to 21, 21, 21. Then we'll delete this one. Let's run it once again. Yes, it was built successfully. Great. Let's run it. Exactly. The total number is 63. So we don't have to specifically say we are going to add 3 numbers or add 6 numbers or add 10 numbers. We can just use the same function, which is a variable number of arguments, to do that. So this code here solves that problem of writing multiple overloaded functions for us. With this code, we don't have to write multiple overloaded functions. If I change that one again now to say the 6 numbers added is, so in that case, I'm going to add 6 numbers. That will be 33, 61, 88. So now we say here we are going to add 6 numbers, and the 6 numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's compile and run our program once again. Yes, it was built successfully. Let's run it. Great. The 6 numbers added is 2, 4, 5. So in this tutorial, we have looked at function overloading. We have looked at the variable number of arguments function, or the variadic variable number of arguments in C++. I hope you learned something from this tutorial. Please subscribe to this channel. Bye for now.